What's going on, Los Angeles? Good morning. Happy Sunday. Welcome into LAFB Live, LA Football Live, with myself, Ryan Dyrud, and the baddest beard in the business, nice and trimmed up. I need to have you just start doing the intros. I don't know why I do it every time. This is both our show. Stephen Haglund, what's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I still have to wear a mask at work. So when I got hired, I was like, so I started a new job like a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got hired, they were like, oh, you have to wear a mask at work. And I was like, that's fine. Like, no big deal. And it was just like so itchy. And then my beard was long. And so after wearing a mask all day, like I would get home and it looked like I had like just woken up because, like the strings like go right in the middle of my beard. And so I was like, I got to trim this thing. And but I'm doing good, man. It's a good day. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some football today.
Love it, dude. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. I just do the goatee, but if it starts getting long, like at all, it like is so uncomfortable wearing a mask. I have to wear a mask when I do my side job also. And it just itches so bad. I just can't handle it. And I end up playing with the mask the whole time. I'm like, all right, this is pointless. Like as soon as you like pull your mask down, there's no point to it anymore. And like touch it. This is dumb.
When you are in the press box at the UCLA and USC games, you have to wear a mask?
So they definitely say yes, unless you're like eating or drinking. I always have like a coffee or something. USC, where my spot is, both games I've been so far this season, like no one showed up next to me. Like there's been people like one seat away, but I've always had a seat in between. And then it's wide open in front of you. So you're basically outdoors. So I kind of take the liberty of just having mine at least hang on my side. And if anyone looks at me weird, I'll put it on. But UCLA's though is like a full like enclosed, like there's little slots, like windows up above that are open. But the main is enclosed. You're pretty indoors. So everyone pretty much wears it at that one that I've been to. But it's kind of like, they tell you in the emails, do it. They announce in the stadium constantly like protocols, but it's not like anyone's really like bringing the hammer down at these games.
Yeah, right. Like, so I don't know if were you at the Chargers game last week or the Rams before that?
I was not, unfortunately. I know you were.
Because I figured that like there would be some enforcement of wearing a mask inside the stadium, but there was like none. There was nothing.
Oh yeah.
And like the only time that you would have to wear a mask is when you were like up getting food. Mm-hmm. Like that was the only time where like there were signs that like you have to wear a mask. Like we'll refuse service if we're not. But it's gonna be interesting to see if that changes much once the vaccine mandate hits in a couple weeks. So that's gonna be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was at the preseason game, the Rams-Chargers one. Yeah, same thing. Like I was all like thinking they were going to be super strict about it. And no, like I probably could have walked. I could have walked in with that one altogether. I think like it's more of like
it's an honor system.
Exactly, or like make people look at you like, okay, like I'll respect you, you respect me, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm curious if it'll be more strict or less strict, because if they're requiring vaccines, I wonder if they'll be less like everyone here is vaccinated or they've tested negative. So I'm curious how that'll go. That starts on October 7th, I think.
Yeah, so for the next Chargers, no, not for the Raiders game. I think for the Browns game, it'll be active.
Yeah.
But I got an email for like the SoFi Stadium survey, and like one of the questions was like, did you receive a COVID questionnaire, and like did you see other people receiving one? And I didn't see a single questionnaire like at all. So it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, how do they really enforce it? Like there's 72,000 people, like they're not checking everything. So I'm going to be curious to see when you go into the game, are they like, are they going to be someone checking your ticket and someone checking your like vaccine card / if you have it on your mobile device? I'm curious how it'll work. So, and it's interesting because it's all LA, but the Rose Bowl where UCLA plays is in Pasadena, and Pasadena has their own health department. So I don't know for sure if they're enforcing it, which is definitely difference. That's something weird that we'll deal with too. And I sit next to Arash McCarthy, who has a radio show, and he tweeted out yesterday that because of this loss last night, which we're going to get into, this USC and Oregon State loss, like it was probably already expected to be like horrible attendance for the next home game against Utah, ironically enough.
I know.
So it was already expected to be probably pretty bad attendance because of how bad this team has looked. But then the fact that the next game is the first one where they're requiring like, vaccination card is like they may have like record lows for this game.
Yeah. And that game was brutal, man. Like we were like flipping between the games, right? Because Oregon, Arizona was on at the same time. I wanted to watch Kayvon Thibodeau since he was active. And there were a couple other games too. And so I'm like sitting there watching USC just get like boat raced by Oregon State. And Oregon State has always been like a good offensive team. I feel like they've always been, like in the top quarter of the conference in points scored and yards and stuff like that. But and you pointed this out on Twitter, like they put up a ton of points on Hawaii and like Idaho State or whatever. And it's like, but this is USC. Like they're boat racing USC, who has probably 2 or 3 first round players on their defense, which it was just crazy how much that game snowballed. And I didn't even realize this until you pointed out that Oregon State had like 150 yards in penalties in the first half, and they took a lead into the locker room.
Yeah. We'll just stick to it. I was going to start with UCLA, but let's just stick with this since we're already on the topic because how bad it was. So we'll do the little USC, we'll do a little UCLA recap, and then we'll get into Chargers, huge matchup with the Chiefs, and then Rams, huge matchup with the Bucks. Like great game, both of them. So excited. So we'll do briefly on the college stuff, but just got to at least talk about it because this USC team. Let me say this to start. With the 6 years that Clay Helton was here and was, coaching USC and, whatever you want to say about him, I'm not here to badmouth him, but you can't change the culture of a team in 10 days. Like you can't just like fully expect this team. Okay, he's fired. Boom. We're back to the glory days of Pete Carroll. It was all Clay Helton. Like, he's instilled, practice principles, instilled, I don't want to say lifestyle, but he's instilled these ways of how he runs this program and these players, whether it's accountability or discipline or stuff like that I think Dante Williams is going to change over the course of these next 8 weeks for the rest of the season. But you can't do that in 10 days. And we saw it last week in the first half against Washington State, where same old USC team looked exactly like the Stanford game. And then, crazy, adjustments at halftime, came out and scored 28 points. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, Dante Williams did it. Did change the whole team in 4 days. Changed the culture in 4 days. So we thought this game was going to be different, but a lot of the same things reared its ugly head. The defense could not stop anything. And I think Oregon State has an underrated offense, but they're not a top 5 Pac-12 team. I mean, maybe top 5, but they're not a top 3 Pac-12 team. I mean, I don't think anyone expected them. These are all 3 and 2-star recruits. They have a lot of transfers that came over from different schools, from different programs. And it's like I tweeted out also, it seems like every quarterback that comes to LA, it was Fresno State last week with Jake Hander. Now, Chance Nolan from Oregon State, they look like, Matt Leinart out there just throwing up everything and, 4 touchdowns. They had over 300 yards of rushing. Like the defense that's the biggest thing is the defense just looked terrible last night. Just could not stop anything.
Well, I think like you said, there was a lot of hype after they beat Washington State. And I watched Washington State yesterday, and they are awful. They are the worst team in the conference, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And I watched my favorite team fumble literally 7 times, Ryan. 7 times they put the ball on the ground, and Utah won 24-13. Like Washington State is not good. So
no.
I think some of that against Washington State was obviously Jackson Dart, and maybe if he plays, this game's a little bit different. But like you mentioned, like it seems right now, just the defense is a mess. I feel like Drake Jackson should be producing way more than he is. I'm not super familiar with like everybody else, but I know that Drake Jackson was getting like first round hype heading into the season, and I feel like it's been pretty quiet. And so it seems like most of their problems are just kind of, they don't really have like a ton of leadership on the team. They don't really have like a culture of toughness. And you can have all the talent in the world, but when you get punched in the mouth, like that's how you win and lose games in college football. Like it really is a momentum based sport. And right now it just seems like USC has no counter punches. Whenever somebody punches them in the mouth, it's just the game's over. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jackson Dart. Once he comes back from this surgery, I don't really know what their plan is, but I think at this point, like we all know that Slovis is not the guy who is going to kind of lead this team. And, it kind of sucks because his freshman season showed so much promise, but, we were talking last night, just he hasn't progressed like at all. And if anything, he's gotten worse. So if Jackson Dart is healthy, like he should be the guy as soon as he's back.
Yeah. And I think he will be. And, that was another shock. Like all of a sudden meniscus surgery out of nowhere. Like, just, like we go to practice. Like we have guys at practice. And it's like, what's going on? Where's Dart? He's not here. And like, it's just very like, don't know anything. But yeah, I think he's the guy because the thing with Slovis, unfortunately, that's changed over these last 2 seasons is the air raid system. And I went into this on my last show, and this is kind of, we can wrap up and then move on to UCLA after this. But air raid system, whether you hate it or love it, whatever it may be, that it's predicated on just super quick decision making. Like you basically make your decision pre-snap. You say, okay, where am I? I have this many options. I have 5 options wide or 4, whatever. I can see this weakness in the defense. That's where I'm going. You're supposed to snap the ball, boom, throw it. You don't process anything. You literally like trust your instincts that you made pre-snap and do it. And that's what Dart did. Part of that maybe just was freshman arrogance. Part of that's just trusting his arm strength. We saw him play.
He doesn't know any better.
Yeah, exactly. You saw him play last week, and he just snaps the ball and slings it. And that's what Slovis did freshman year. He came in, snap the ball, sling it, throw it deep, get his guys in space. Now you watch him, it's like he had great protection last night. It wasn't the fault of the offensive line, but he sits back there for 4, 5, 6 seconds when he has 2 wide open receivers over the middle, and then ends up just throwing it up to Drake Jackson in double coverage. And because he's the best receiver in the country, he makes a great play. But
he's so good.
Dude, he's so good. So good. Like, it's like a guarantee he's getting over 100 yards and a touchdown a game.
Yeah, that's wild.
But that's been the frustrating and the hard thing with Slovis is it's like he's thinking too much. I don't know if he's too scared to make a mistake. Yeah. And so he's trying to go through his reads. But in the reality, he ends up making a mistake because the air raid is predicated on just super quick. Like, you got to get the ball out quick to move the chains, move the ball. So it's tough. But Dart, I'm assuming, is going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So it's going to be the Cleveland Slovis show at least for a while. And then I'm curious, and I'll end it with this. Do you think if whenever Dart comes back, if he ends up getting the starting job, will Slovis still attempt to go to the draft in this year? Or do you think he transfers and plays his senior year somewhere else and hopes to, bump his draft stock up? Because, a lot of people thinking maybe first round pick this year. And I think now that's definitely out the window. But maybe he can raise it up again if he goes somewhere. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if he's being benched, there's no way he's getting drafted as highly as he probably would have hoped going in. So I think he transfers. Like, there's no reason for him to stick around. I assume that he's graduated because he's been there for a while, but he's not sticking around, and I don't think he would declare for the draft when his stock is literally as worse as it could possibly get.
Yeah. Yeah, even in the game, 2 interceptions to end it. Just, they were a far cry from trying to come back, but just same thing, just bad reads. Anyway, USC is in a lot of hurt, but what I would implore USC fans is, it's not an overnight fix. Just because you fire Clay Helton, it's not like all of a sudden this is the Pete Carroll 2004 glory days. Like, it's going to take some time. Give Dante Williams some time to at least, have these guys playing hard the rest of the year, and then when we hit the offseason, we can get into what's the next moves for them. So, but Steve, let's talk quickly about UCLA because they had a big win yesterday against Stanford. And, I know Stanford's not ranked and UCLA coming off a tough loss to Fresno State, but Stanford is one of the best coached teams in the Pac-12 with David Shaw. They're always tough. They're one of those teams that can beat anybody in the country, I think, week in and week out, and they could lose anybody in the country sometimes.
Yeah.
But they go up to the farm, UCLA does, and jumps off to a 21-7 lead. Let Stanford back in at 21-21, and then you're like, okay, man, here we go. They're going to lose another, brutal end of the game. And then when it mattered most, I was a little critical of DTR throughout the game, but when it mattered most, and he's done this actually in both weeks, he showed up in the time it mattered most, kind of put the team on his back, and led them to a 11-point victory. And UCLA leaves Stanford 3-1, and I think they'll jump up the rankings just a tiny bit after that victory. But overall, I think it was a good day for the Bruins as they continue building their stock for this Pac-12 season now.
Yeah, and this is exactly the kind of game that you want to see from UCLA coming off a tough loss, like, really, really tough loss, like last second loss. You want to see them bounce back and get a win and handle their business. And, you and I talked before the season about kind of my expectations for UCLA. And of course, USC and Utah are really kind of, much worse than I would have pictured. But, one of the reasons why I was skeptical about UCLA is because I didn't trust DTR to not make like back-breaking mistakes. Like, that was always his issue. The talent was always there. You could always see the playmaking, you could always see the arm talent, but it was just like the back-breaking mistakes would pop up and then it would just kind of steamroll. So he's done a great job from what I've seen so far this year of avoiding those mistakes. And, Chip Kelly has a great game plan right now with Charbonnet and all those guys, and they're really running the ball really effectively. Defense with all the super seniors is playing really well. So I think this was a really solid win. I think Bruins fans should be very, very, content with what they watched yesterday. And I think, honestly, like, they're going to win the South, man. Like, I don't think there's any question that UCLA is the favorite in the South anymore. And, unfortunately, there's another situation in Utah going on that I don't think this team is going to bounce back from. So, yeah, it's going to be UCLA, and then the rest of the division just kind of sucks. So, good for Bruins fans.
Yeah. ASU is one I can't put my finger on. Big win yesterday against Colorado. I don't get, like, they take Texas A&M to the brink, and then they just get blown out the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's weird.
And so
maybe they just need to play every game in the Broncos Stadium.
I guess that's it. Yeah, played at Mile High. So, but yeah, I think this is a good win. It's what you wanted to see, because after a tough loss against Fresno State, and then there's a lot of question marks. Like, was this a fluke? Was it, not really they're that good? They're, same thing as same old. But to see them come out and, play well overall. I know they let Stanford back into it, but overall in all phases, they played pretty well. They've had pretty good special teams. Kyle Phillips had some great punt returns. Yeah. And you're seeing your playmakers do what they are expected to do. Kyle Phillips is slowly, I talked a lot in the offseason how he was the most underrated receiver in the Pac-12, and he's slowly becoming not underrated anymore. Like, he's on people's radar now. He's no Drake Jackson. I'm not going that far yet, but the dude's pretty good. He's had 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. That's something to write home about. Zach Charbonnet, I don't know how Michigan ever let that guy go. You watch him run, and that guy is just a freaking stud running the football.
He's so good.
So good. And, DTR's at times looked like the old DTR. At times he's looked great. So, as long as he can not give up the costly mistakes, like you say, this is a team that can definitely win the Pac-12 South. I believe next week they play Oregon. I think it's next week. So that's going to be like the game of the week, I think, in the entire country, because that's, that could have playoff implications if UCLA can somehow shock Oregon. Then you have no undefeated teams left in the Pac-12. So that's going to be a good one, which I'll get into a lot of my show later in the week. But overall good win for the Bruins, and it's good to have a good taste in your mouth after what USC just did.
Yeah, and man, that Fresno State team, like, I went and watched them play here on Friday.
Yeah, that
offense is insane, man. Like, Jake Haener is the real deal, and so I think Bruins fans should be pretty happy with where they're at. Like, I think if you had gone back 6 months and told them, like, hey, at this point, at the end of September, this team is going to be 3-1. They're going to have wins over, LSU, Stanford, and they're going to be ranked. I think Bruins fans would be like, sign me the hell up. Like, like, this is awesome. So I understand, like, the frustration of losing to Fresno State, but that's a really, really good team.
Yeah.
And it was a last second, highly competitive game. So I think Bruins fans should be very happy. Everything they want is right in front of them. And even if they lose to Oregon, like, the South is still theirs. Like, it's still going to run through UCLA this year, because, like I said, like, USC already has 2 conference losses. Utah already has, some really tough struggles going on the field and off the field right now. So it's just, like you said, it's ASU and UCLA, and I don't think anyone really buys ASU at this point. So I think Bruins fans should be very, very happy with where their team's at right now.
Yep, I know. You make a good point. Like, people forget that, what this team was just a month ago, like, expectations overall. And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like you win 2 big games, and it's like college football playoff or bust, and you lose one. It's like, oh, here we go again. We're awful. Right. Same old Bruins. Like, no, Fresno State, I said last week that's the best offense I think UCLA will play all year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Including Oregon next week, just because Oregon's offense is similar to what UCLA's offense is. Fresno State's is just dynamic, man. Jake Haener is looking fantastic. Former, I think, Washington, who has just horrible quarterback play, is like, what the hell are they thinking? Letting that guy go.
Yeah, Washington's a mess. So I assume you didn't get to watch much of that game against Cal because you were at USC, but
yeah, I saw they won in overtime, but I didn't see any of it.
Gosh. It was like one of those games where, like, neither team wanted to win. Like, it gets down to, like, late in the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes left, and Cal had just tied the game up, and you could tell that Washington just, like, they had no faith that they could go and score a touchdown or get a field goal or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just burning clock, man. Like right out the gate after the kickoff, they're just burning clock. And then you could tell that Cal, like, they didn't have any faith that they could go, score a field goal or score a touchdown to win the game. So they're burning clock. And then Jimmy Lake takes a timeout late. And then Cal's like, okay, maybe we have time to go and score. And then they, like, wasted like a minute and 35 seconds, 40 seconds of clock trying to figure out if they could go and score or not. And then they ran out of time. And then they tried this kicker out for like a 58-yard field goal, and it was like 5 yards short. And I'm like, you guys, like, this is so bad.
Yeah.
So
probably know the kicker's different distance too.
Yeah, exactly. So I was saying this yesterday to some of my Utah friends. It's like it really feels like Oregon is like the only team, like tier 1 team. UCLA is tier 2, and they're the only tier 2 team in the conference. And then it's just like everybody else trying to figure out if they can make a bowl game or not this year. Like the Pac-12 is just not in a good spot right now.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I would, and again, I'm not just saying this in this last thing, and then we'll get to this Chargers. I know there's Chargers fans in here waiting for us to talk Chargers Chiefs, but I'm not just saying this because I saw them play last night and just boat race USC, but Oregon State may end up being one of the surprise teams of this conference. Sure. I mean, they're 3-1 right now. I know they haven't played fantastic competition, but they could be one of the surprise teams and end up, winning 7-8 games. I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, but winning 7 or 8 games and going to a bowl game and turning that program around for the better. I know they've been one of the bottom dwellers for quite a few years now, but they've been building something there. And I'll tell you what, again, USC just played bad, but that offense looked pretty. I mean, when you have over 300 yards rushing, I don't care who you are, that's a good offensive production day.
Yeah, that running back for Oregon State is a really good dude. So, like you said, if Oregon State got up there to 8-9 wins, like that's probably like the second best team in the North. Like it's just crazy. So
yeah,
it's a lot of teams in a bad spot this year, which is definitely not unique to the Pac-12. Like we watched Clemson lose to freaking NC State yesterday. North Carolina was supposed to be the second best team in the ACC. They got boat raced by Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
like Georgia Tech is in a worse spot than Oregon State is. So, it could always be worse.
Yeah, I know. It's good to see some parity in college football finally. Even Ohio State, there's a lot of question marks on. Like outside of Alabama, it's like we could see Arkansas in the college football playoff. I know it's still an SEC team, but hey, that's kind of fun. We could see Oregon, or if UCLA runs the house, we could see UCLA make a push. Who knows what's going to come out of the Big Ten? So yeah, it's good. Oklahoma's struggling. Like their offense can't do anything this season. So it's fun to see.
Which is so great. I can't stand that kid, that quarterback. I cannot stand him.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan either.
But so. I think this year is the perfect year for Alabama to try something new and split their team in half.
Okay.
Alabama North, Alabama South, and figure out really like how good their backups are.
Okay. I like that.
Their backups probably could be like a top 15 team this year, man. Like it's wild how much better they are than everybody else. And they lost like 13 dudes from last year's team to the NFL, and it just doesn't matter.
What's crazy to me, and again, this will be the last thing.
Sorry for the tangents.
No, yeah. What's crazy to me, it's not, my daughter's not here, so we can like speak more freely. Like, don't have to be as like poignant. Like I dropped her off, so we have no noise, and I had to take the headphones off. They kept cutting out, but. So college football, you have what? In D1, you have 250 schools or whatever it is?
Like 260, I think.
And you have like, what, 10,000 football players in the country, like in those programs or so. And I'm not taking anything away from Alabama and what Nick Saban's built there and just the powerhouse that they are. But you can't tell me that there's not enough talent to go around.
In other places,
teams can be competitive. I just like don't get it. Like, what are they doing? There's smart coaches out there. I know there are. Like, I don't get what they're doing that they just can't compete with this school of 90 kids and can never even come close.
And that's the thing too, is like Saban cycles through coordinators like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Like he's never had the same coordinator for like 2 years. Like they all leave for head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter. Like I don't know what Saban is doing down there. And I just keep thinking like, oh, he's like 70. Like eventually this is just going to start like, we'll see like a gradual decline like we always did with like, Bobby Bowden and like all these great coaches. Like eventually it just like you start to see the cracks and then, a few years later, they're like just done. But there's no slowing down. Like this is crazy that, you have, Jalen Hurts takes you to a championship. Tua takes you to a championship. Mac takes you to a championship. Now you have Bryce Young, who is probably the best like talent of all 4 of those guys.
Yeah.
And you have 4 NFL receivers. You have 5 NFL offensive linemen. You have their defense is like, okay, like to Alabama standards, their defense isn't, what it usually is, but they still have 4 or 5 guys that are going to be in the first, second, third rounds. Like it's just crazy to me. Every single year, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So I remember saying when the Patriots were in their dynasty, and with them, I was frustrated because like you would watch other teams like give them their talent. Like, well, let's trade with the Patriots, or let's let our free agents sign with the Patriots. Like, okay, that's just teams being dumb. Like, you're literally helping out the dynasty.
Here's Randy Moss.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go. Like, just take our best players. Oh, let's trade you so we can just get some draft capital. But with Alabama, it's like there's so many kids out there. There's so many 4- and 5-star recruits, so many teams, so many powerhouse schools like what should be the USCs, the Oregons, the Ohio States, the Clemsons, the many, many more. It's like, I don't know how none of them can just even like come close. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into
Let's talk about it,
shall we? This Chargers game is going to be a big one. We've talked all week long, previewed on LAFB Network. I'm sure you guys have not. I know you guys have previewed it on your show, Guilty as Charged. I previewed it on mine. We've talked to some different Chiefs analysts and different Chiefs reporters and fans and whatnot. And, this is a big game every year. Justin Herbert got his first start of his young career last year in week 2 against his team at SoFi.
Yeah.
What's your expectations? Because, first of all, let's go through let's just do that. What's your expectations for this game? You think the Chargers have a chance?
They have a chance for sure. Like, this team is so talented across the board, and Joey Bosa being active, which is just like crazy to me that this man just can fight through injuries like this. So we'll see. He might be on a bit of a pitch count, but they certainly have the talent, right? And I think they have played the Chiefs tougher than really anybody else in the league, at least in terms of like consistently being competitive with them. If you had asked me this question like a month ago, I would have said that I would have felt great about this game, that I would have felt like the Chargers would be, in a really good spot. And I think, like we said, like the talent is there, but the operation has not been very clean right now, at least on the offensive side of the football. And like, you have to be able to score 30 points to beat the Chiefs. Like, you have to get to 30. And I don't think that this team is in that kind of spot right now. And with all the penalties, all the turnovers, the red zone inefficiencies, I'm expecting a close game, but I'd be pretty surprised if the Chargers won today, as much as that sucks to say, just because the operation has just not been good. And there's definitely some of like, they're trying to figure out, what they want to do in certain spots, trying to figure out and feel out this team with the coaching staff and stuff like that. And I totally understand that, but I just don't have enough confidence in this offense for them to, really go into Arrowhead and get a win. Like, I think it'll be close, but I think the Chiefs will pull away at the end, as much as that sucks to say.
Yeah, it's, the red zone stuff is frustrating because I remember all the way back in training camp being like, seeing the struggles of the red zone and this offense, and the defense would always go 8 for 9 or 7 for 10, or like it was always the defense winning in the red zone. And that was a note I made. I was like, okay, that's a little concerning. Like, you want to see some more efficiency there. Hopefully that doesn't trickle over. They're just getting things figured out, but unfortunately we've seen it so far in the regular season. Have to settle for field goals, bad turnovers. And you're not going to beat the Chiefs settling for field goals or turning the ball over in the red zone. So that's, I think, the most important thing. I do want to see, what's your thoughts on the running game? Because I think the running game's been efficient. They just haven't really utilized it. Like last week, it was always either a tie game or a 3-point game. And they ran the ball like 16 times, I think. Austin Eckler ran the ball like 9 times total.
Yeah. So, it's been efficient with Eckler for sure, because Eckler's so good. At breaking tackles. And I'm a big Larry Roundtree guy, but he needs to get like some momentum going before he can like really bring his physicality to the table. Like, he is, a progressive runner.
Yeah.
But I think, what I wanted to see after the first game was the running game to be a little bit more diverse and, do some jet sweeps and do some RPOs and, get Austin Eckler on the outside, because I think, the strength of this team right now for the running attack is the left guard and the left tackle, which is, of course, Matt Filer and Rashawn Slater. And then you have the tight ends who are blocking really well. So the running game last week was a lot of fun. I had a great time watching, the film and seeing them do a lot of outside zone stuff, inside zone stuff, RPOs, like I said, jet sweeps. So I would like to see them feature that more this week, not like go full, Anthony Lynn 50-50 split, but maybe be closer towards like a 60-40 split, because I just think like it makes things so much easier on Justin Herbert when he doesn't have to throw the ball 45 times a game. And that's something to me that I think would help alleviate some pressure in the red zone, because it just feels like right now, like once they get there, it's like they'll take a shot at the end zone on first down. Then they'll do like a screen pass or a swing pass to try and, get some yards back. And then you're in 3rd and long again. So,
yeah,
the play calling for Joe Lombardi, I think overall has been better than I would have hoped at this point. But I think at the red zone, they just get a little too cute at certain points. So I do want to see them be able to feature the running attack today a little bit more than we've seen. And again, not saying 50-50 split, not saying give Austin Eckler 20 carries and Larry Roundtree 15, but like if we could get like 15 for Eckler and 8 to 10 for Larry Roundtree, I think that would be in a good spot for where I think this offense should be.
Yeah, and for me, it's not even taking the pressure off of Herbert, because I think he can handle it. Obviously, it helps, but for me, it's just keeping the ball out of Mahomes' hands. And sometimes you do that by running the ball. You need long, sustained drives, which that's been the one thing the Chargers have done so far this year is they've had long, sustained drives.
They're just not ending in touchdowns.
Yeah, it's not capitalizing and getting touchdowns. So if they can do that and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands and have these 6, 7, 8-minute drives, cap it with a touchdown, that's your recipe for success right there. That's your recipe to beat the Chiefs, in my opinion. Because there's not a lot of ways to beat them, but if you can do that, that certainly helps. The other thing, we got to talk about it, and Ross brought this up. I was getting to this anyway, but that's great that he brought this up. But Storm Norton had a rough go last week. It's hard to blame him. The guy's a backup tackle. Like, he's not expected to be a starter. He's not expected to be Brian Balaga or a stud. But they really didn't do much to help him out against a good, solid pass rusher, young pass rusher last week in Micah Parsons. So this week, are we going to see more chips? Are they going to just put him on an island and say, good luck?
Yeah.
I will say this too, before you get into it, I will say this, Frank Clark is inactive. So that's a big inactive for the Chiefs.
Yeah. And I know Frank Clark has been a disappointment for a lot of people, but he's still better than what they have. Like, if there is anything to criticize about the Chiefs over the last few years, is that the way that they build this roster, at least defensively, is awful. Like, this defense is so bad. Yeah. And, outside of Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu, it's just a bunch of like average players. And I think L'Jarius Sneed could become that, but he's struggled to start this year. But the pass rush for the Chiefs is not in a good spot. Nick Bolton, their rookie linebacker, is actually second on the team in pressures with 2. And he has rushed the passer 10 times. So their pass rush, and he's second on the team. Their pass rush is not in a good spot. And, Chris Jones, I understand like the thought process of like getting him some more reps at defensive end, but it has not been pretty from what I have seen. Mm-hmm. He has 2 sacks, but one of those came against one of the Browns tight ends, and the other one came against their 3rd string tackle. So
yeah, and not to cut you off, Steven, but it drives me crazy because it's like players make a career doing something, and then coaches say, let's just change it. Let's just like he's built his bank being on the inside, being a D tackle on this 4-3 scheme. Like, why move him to the edge?
I know it makes no sense to me. And the Ravens, of course, are the Ravens. Like they're a different kind of team, right? But I mean, Alejandro Villanueva is probably not that much better than Storm Norton at this point in his career. Yeah. And Alejandro Villanueva like completely shut him down. And if you watch Chris Jones today, it is bull rush and nothing else. There's no, because he's not fast. He's a 320-pound dude. So he's not going to beat you around the edge. He's not going to beat you on the inside rush with speed. Like, it's bull rush or nothing. Yeah. And that works great against guards, right? Because you're there in an instant. Like, if you get off quick and you can get your hands on him quick, like, you're fine. But against tackles where you have all this space between where the tackle is jump setting back or kick setting back rather, it just doesn't really work. And so I think Storm Norton will be fine. I don't think he is a give up 10 pressures player on a normal basis. Yeah. I think just last week it was a bad plan of execution by him. And, he adjusted too late because he was okay in late in the third and in the fourth quarters once he finally like figured out how he wanted to play against Micah Parsons. But it was a really bad matchup and it was a bad plan of attack, which is obviously not a good combination. So I think Storm Norton is right in like that Sam Tevi range from last year, where he's going to be serviceable some weeks and he's going to struggle some other weeks. But as long as they can kind of mitigate that risk and manage those bad weeks, I think the Chargers will be fine until Brian Bulaga comes back, if Brian Bulaga comes back.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to chip him. Like, I don't think they have to help him much this week because, like I said, without Frank Clark, I am not worried about this pass rush. Then again, I wasn't really worried about the Cowboys pass rush either. Yeah. But, you know, I think he can handle Frank. I think he can handle Chris Jones on an island because it's just, you just have to anchor down. Like, you don't have to worry about counters. You don't have to worry about speed. So I think Norton's going to, I think Norton's going to be okay this week. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. It's just pad on pad. So it's not, you know, Micah Parsons is so fast. I know he's an off-ball linebacker that they move. So everyone was like, it's not even a pass rush, and look what he's done. But the dude did it in college. The dude is just a freak athlete. Like, he was drafted at whatever it was, 11th overall for a reason, 12th overall for a reason. And just a bad point of attack. You're right. Storm improved throughout the game. And I just love Storm's story. So I love seeing that he's out there. And, you know, how happy are you, though, that this offseason you get to just dive right in the tackle? The Chargers are probably taking a tackle in the first round next year again.
Tyler has said that same thing to me on our podcast, and I love it, man. Like, when they hired Brandon Staley and he said that they wanted to be a trench team, right? I was like, okay, but Tom Telesco's still the general manager. Like, he never really did that. And then they went and, you know, did everything that they did. So I'm really excited, man. And I think, you know, like, we saw what the Saints did for years with Drew Brees. It was like first round offensive lineman every single year, or second rounder. So that's the best way to protect Justin Herbert long term, is just keep, you know, moving the chains on the offensive line and keep on stockpiling with first round picks. So I'm really excited for that. But we'll see. We'll have to, you know, cross that bridge when we get
there.
In
week 3. We're in week 3. We'll get there. Craig Smith brings up the special teams. Let's touch on that quickly. It's important every week, obviously, but when you play a team like the Chiefs, you can score at will at any time. It's going to be important pinning them, and then also just turning the field and flipping it if need be. So how important is that for this game? And how do you see our special teams? Have you seen our special teams improve? Because I feel like they've looked better than last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely better than last year, which is a very low bar. But Craig is right. You know, the special teams this week is so important because the Chiefs, they always have good returners, right? And Dave Tube, their special teams coach, is a fantastic special teams coach. And so, like, the one thing you can't do against the Chiefs more than anything else is give them extra possessions, which is an offense issue, and B, give them short fields. Like, you have to manage those two areas more than anything else against the Chiefs. And so if you give up a big punt return to, I think Mecole Hardman is their main returner, or you give a big kick return, like, you know, it's a problem. We saw the first week, like, the Chargers wanted to kind of kick high and short and be able to rally tackle. Don't even try it this week. Don't even bother. Like, kick it straight out of the end zone every time. Have Ty Long punt it deep and out of bounds. Like, I don't care. Like, do not give their returners a chance to do anything, because, like I said, you just can't give Patrick Mahomes, you know, a short field. You just can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the return game, KJ Hill, put your damn heel at the 10-yard line and freeze. If the ball goes over your head, do not move. Heels on the 10.
So bad.
And that's where you live. You live at your heels on the 10. Anything over your head, you let go. If they make a play on it and pin us inside the 10, great special teams play by the Chiefs. Like, don't be receiving the ball on the 2-yard line.
I know. When that happened, so that was on the opposite end zone of where we were sitting.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't really tell, like, where he caught that ball. But I was like, oh, like, he made a guy miss. Like, he got a few yards. I was like, okay, cool. And then I saw on Twitter, like, a few plays later, like, everybody was freaking out about KJ Hill. And then I saw where he caught the ball, and I was like, what are we doing?
Dude, so many guys do that nowadays. I'm like, do coaches not coach that, or are players just ignore coaches? Like, that was when I was a punt returner, that was the biggest thing. Like, heels on the 10, anything over, you let go. If they make a play on it, hey, touche them. That's a great special teams play for them. We're not going to help them out, though, by being idiots and receiving on the 3-yard line and either getting it there or potentially fumbling. Ugh.
Yeah, man. And it was funny, too, because he, like, posted it. Somebody, like, tagged him with that play on Instagram, and he, like, reposted it. And I was like, KJ, what are you doing, man? That is not a play to be bragging about.
He reposted it, like, in a positive light?
Yes.
Oh man, come on, KJ.
So I don't know. Like I understand like where their thoughts at, right? Because Desmond King was the punt returner, and he had like 5 muffed punts in 2019. And so that's the one thing that KJ Hill, like I have confidence that he's not going to muff a punt.
Yeah.
But like there's just no juice there.
Yeah.
And I am, curious to see if like down the road, do they bring up, I'm totally gonna forget his name right now. Your guy, Austin Prohl.
Oh
There we
yeah.
go. Or Maurice French is the guy that they signed who has some good return ability too. So I'm curious how short of a leash KJ Hill has, because like he doesn't really offer anything as a receiver. I know he had a good couple plays in week 1, but at some point it's like you got to get some juice, because the opposite, right, is true for the Chargers, because they're not getting short fields, except for the turnover ones. But in special teams, they're not getting short fields. And so I'm just wondering if at some point Darius Swinton is going to settle for not turning the ball over and want to kind of bring up somebody who has a little more juice to him and potentially, swing field position their way for once.
It still kills me, and this will be we'll get predictions right after this, and then we'll transition to Rams Bucks, but still kills me. And I know I'm a homer because he's my guy. He's been on my show a bunch. I've met him. We made a shirt after him. But seeing that the Chargers and Rams, I was thinking he was more of a better fit for the Rams, but had a chance at Demetric Felton, and he ended up going in the 6th round of the Browns. He's their full-time kick return and punt return, and had a 25-yard screen touchdown last week. Like, it was just a baller move. It looked like what he did at UCLA, that I was like, this guy can do this at the NFL level. Just give him a shot. And I'm like, and neither Rams or the Chargers like have that on their team right now. And he would have just been right into the special teams kick return, punt returner. You're set for the next decade as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting, because there's already, of course, people next year who are mock drafting and, putting the Chargers for a receiver in the 1st round. And, it's always a receiver who can return or be a yards after catch guy, because they do need that kind of person.
Yeah.
And of course, we all kind of hope that Joe Reed was going to be that guy, but he's not, or at least hasn't been given a chance. So I don't know. Like I went and looked at some Twitter videos of French, and like I'm intrigued. Like I really am. And he did spend some time on the Chiefs, of course. So if he fits their style of receiver, then like I'm intrigued. So I hope we get to see him, eventually this year.
Yeah, I think we will. We'll see. We'll see. It's still just like 5 receivers on the active roster right now, right?
Yeah,
on the active. 5. Yeah. So we'll see what.
And they protect Jason Moore like every week, so they like Moore too, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Craig, you're right. He says Felton's pro day screwed him, which is why I hate pro days. Like, look at the dude play. Like, watch his tape.
Especially now,
the Browns.
Especially now with all the GPS data, like we know if guys are fast or not.
Yeah, it's stupid. Like, I think it's pointless. And I don't know how many coaches I've talked to. Some coaches, just through like Frosty and stuff, that say they don't even pay attention to that. Like, they show up, but they could care less about your pro day. It's more about you competing out there. They don't really care about the numbers.
Yeah.
But some probably do, I'm sure. I think it's less than what fans think, but I'm sure some they play into somewhat of a factor.
I think the pro day and the combine and stuff like that is more so like seeing that guys are like staying in shape and like working, and like that this really does like matter to them on an independent level, because that's really like, every single year you have the football season, and then the players have 2-3 months off, and you don't want to be drafting guys that are going to get out of shape every single year. So I think it's more so of like seeing them stay in shape and seeing them stay physically active and stuff like that, and like you said, the competitive matter of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, that time has passed, so we'll move on for that. So what do you think? You think the Chargers can shock the world, or do they come up just short in this one and fall to, unfortunately, would be last in the division early on in the season?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I'm not super worried about that. I figured the Chargers, like if they could get to 3-3 after the first 6 heading into the bye at 500, I think that would be kind of, right where the team needs to be. I'm expecting the Chiefs to win. I'm expecting it to be a close game. I just don't have full confidence in the offense to really be a smooth operation right now. If there's a team where they can get right against and figure it out, it's this defense, like I said, is awful. But I don't have enough evidence to believe that they can play a mistake-free game, which is what you need against the Chiefs. So I think, like I said, the Chiefs will win, and I think they'll win probably pulling away close. I'll say 31-27.
Yeah, I agree. I predicted a Chiefs win on my show. I've been wanting to change because I feel good about this Chargers team. I think it's a work in progress. Like we both have said all offseason, like don't expect just because of this coaching stage, all of a sudden they're going to be like a 6-1 team or 7-1 team. Like it's going to take time. And some things have been great. Like the offensive line, I think has looked way better, quicker than I expected.
So much better. Yeah.
Other things have taken more time, like the red zone we talked about, some of the play calling efficiency, some of the run defense, stuff like that has just taken a little bit more time. But you can see the culture shifting. You can see the little things that were wrong last year are not wrong this year. Like there's no game management issues or stuff like that, which is good to see. So it's just, it's building. I just don't think they're there quite yet. And unfortunately, with the Chiefs coming off a back-breaking loss to the Ravens, I can't remember the last time the Chiefs lost 2 games in a row. So I don't think it starts this week. The fact that they're at home at Arrowhead, the Chargers played there last year in front of 13,000 fans. Well, now there's going to be 72,000 fans. So that's one of the best home field advantages in football.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how Justin Herbert handles that aspect of it. But, I think it'll be, you think about it. This is Justin Herbert's first true road test in the NFL. Because last year, no fans other than a few stadiums, which had 13,000. And then week 1 in Washington, that stadium was half empty. Like that was and it was
half Chargers fans, man.
Yeah, a lot of Chargers fans, and the whole it drives me crazy. This doesn't get talked about. Everyone talks about the fans here in LA. Washington's whole upper bowl was empty in that game. Empty.
Yeah. They didn't even show it. I think they had some parts of it tarped off. The Broncos, overran the Jaguars stadium last week, and nobody talks about it.
They overran the Giants stadium in week 1, and that's the Giants. The Browns overran the Chiefs stadium.
Right. I was at the game against the Cowboys, obviously, and to me, it genuinely felt like 50-50. It felt like it was about as even as you could possibly have it. And against the Cowboys, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
And, you still have Bill Plaschke and all those guys. LA's never going to embrace the Chargers. It's are we paying attention to the rest of the league? There's legitimately 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 teams in the league that consistently have a home field advantage.
Yeah.
It's a problem everywhere. And it only gets talked about, in LA.
Yeah. And it's not even, I don't even see it as a problem. It's a traveling league now. Fans want to travel to different games. They want to visit new cities, especially with after last year being cooped up. They want to get out and explore and see new things. That's just the way it is now.
It is. But I think just kind of getting back to the game really quickly, I think you're right. To me, of course, I want to see them win. But the Chargers are at their stage of the Brandon Staley era where I just need to see improvement each week.
Yeah.
Cut back on the penalties this week, cut back on the turnovers, and I'll be happy. As much as that's going to annoy people, I don't think this team is at the stage of their era, their current era, where it's you win every game or you suck, which is on Twitter, everybody is, saying that the team should be firing coaches after losing to the Cowboys and cut X player because he wasn't good. It's the season is progressive. There's 15 games left. There will be 14 after today. The team will be fine. They just need to keep making progress. And with the talent they have, that is going to turn into wins. And like you said, the culture is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of people complaining that they should have kept Anthony Lynn. It's are you fucking serious? Come on now.
Yeah.
We all watched Anthony Lynn on a week-to-week basis, and this is completely different. So, like you said, I'm just focusing on, progression, and I'm focusing on the little things being, cleaned up. And I think to me that could, result in a win today. And if it does, fantastic. I'll be stoked. But I'm just not expecting a win today. I'm not expecting them to be, 14-2 this year, or 14-3 or whatever. God, I hate that 17th game. But I just need to see improvement each week, and that could certainly happen today, and I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see improvement. I love seeing too. Just you can tell Brandon Staley disgusted with losing. You can just see
he hates it.
He's disgusted by it, which is refreshing to see. Still respectful about it in his presser, but you can just tell he's this is stupid. And then it made me laugh when you brought up Plaschke when he brought come on, you're gonna ask the coach about the crowd in a game, and he's just we had great fans here. Just moved on. I gave him a 2-word answer. I'm good for you, coach. All right. Let's move on to this Rams game. So, okay, we both have the Chargers losing just narrowly, correct? Unfortunately.
Yeah, just narrowly, yeah.
Narrowly.
It'll be within a touchdown. It always is.
It always is, exactly. And hey, maybe they'll shock the world. Great game. Kickoff in about 35 minutes. So can't wait for that. Rams Buccaneers could be an NFC championship showdown. Last year's game was great in Tampa. This is in LA. I believe I saw somewhere this is Tom Brady's first game ever in Los Angeles in his whole career.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because they've played since the Rams or Chargers. If they've played when he was in New England or with Tampa, he's always been home. So first time out. Yeah. First time out west. Or in LA, or I'm sure he played a game in San Diego when the Chargers were there. But so first game in LA against this Rams team. First of all, Steven, I know you don't follow the team closely, but I know you watch football. Like, what's your just thoughts on how Matthew Stafford's looked so far? I mean, the dude looks pretty good, I think.
I'm gonna remind everybody, and I will throughout the season, that I said back in February after they got him that I was expecting Matthew Stafford to be an MVP candidate and potentially win it. And that has been the case. Like, it has been so refreshing to see, this kind of relationship between Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, which is, Matthew Stafford has always had this kind of talent. It's always just been an issue of the surrounding cast. And people were like, he's never won a playoff game. It's like, are we underplaying how good and how important the head coach and quarterback relationship is? Because you have arguably the smartest offensive coach in the league, with arguably one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. Like, the writing was on the wall. We should have all been expecting Matthew Stafford to play at this kind of level, especially after like the first week of practice where it was like Deshaun Jackson, 50-yard touchdown, Van Jefferson, 60-yard touchdown. Like, it was crazy the kind of bombs that they were throwing. And that's the other thing too. They have such a good supporting cast. The offensive line is playing great with Andrew Whitworth, who seems to have found the fountain of youth, man. It's just been amazing. So I am expecting some fireworks in this game, between these two offenses that are on this field. And, realistically, like, these are probably the two best offenses in the league in terms of like 1 through 11 in terms of overall well-rounded talent. So this is going to be a super fun game to watch today. This is one of those days where you just sit on Fox. Like, you don't even watch the other CBS game. So this is it's going to be an electric matchup for sure.
Yeah. Right now, on Bet Online, Stafford's tied for 4th best odds to win MVP. So, still doing good. And he just looks comfortable already, which is fun to see. And, he had that pick last week, which as soon as you threw it, I mean, I know you're on Chargers Twitter, but Rams Twitter, every team Twitter's the same. Like, everyone's just like the sky is falling immediately. You have like Detroit fans coming in like, see, we told you he would throw a costly interception. It's like, well, yeah, quarterbacks do that sometimes.
Quarterbacks do that.
Herbert's had some, unfortunately. Like, good quarterbacks still make costly plays every now and then, and it's not going to in the world is how they rebound from it. And he did. He rebounded, let a comeback drive, went down, and they won the football game against a playoff team. So I got into a little I don't even say it was really a debate. It was cordial back and forth a little bit with Eric Davis, former 49ers cornerback, who I always have so much respect for players because they played the game. We didn't. I always like to tout my high school level play when I was a JV receiving star, but these guys played at the highest level, played in Super Bowls, so I have way more respect for them. But he was trying to argue with me that Jared Goff is the better quarterback than Stafford because Goff went into a losing situation with the Rams and turned them into a winner, whereas Stafford had 12 years and could never turn Detroit into a winner. And I'm like, I guess I kind of get that, but at the same time, I would put much more into Sean McVay changing the Rams into a winner than I would Goff. And Stafford had like 4 different head coaches, 5 different offensive coordinators, no rushing game, turnstile offensive line, terrible defenses, like bad GMs. He had 3 different GMs. Like, I think a lot more goes into that than a quarterback showing up and saying, all right, culture change. Let's be winners now.
Like I think it's so funny how the media and certain players, like you're mentioning, like, will pick and choose when when wins matters for a quarterback and when it doesn't. Like, the whole like wins being a quarterback stat, like, always just, it pisses me off because, like, of course, like, you have certain things where, like, clearly the quarterback is kind of like the driving force. Like, Tom Brady is clearly the driving force in like Tampa Bay right now because that roster was arguably just as good with Jameis Winston as it is now. But you swap out Jameis Winston for the best quarterback of all time, that matters. Yeah. And so there like are certain things where it's like, there are certain times where it does matter. But and I laughed too when I saw like the ESPN LA radio station like tweet out the stats of Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford through 2 games. And it was like, are we missing Jared Goff yet? It's like, oh my gosh, Jared Goff has big stats because he's been in garbage time and they're thrown 55 times a game. So it just cracks me up, like the whole narrative surrounding quarterbacks. And like, you know, there's of course with like the quarterbacks who have been drafted recently, it's like Tua has the best winning percentage by far. And whoever likes Tua, like that's the only thing they bring up about Tua is that he happened to be on a good team and he happened to win, you know, 6 of his first 9 starts or whatever it is. And all these other guys are not winning at that kind of percentage. And it's like the whole wins are a QB stat narrative. Just it's really annoying how people pick and choose when it matters and when it doesn't. Yeah. But yeah, it's just been funny to watch.
It's stupid. Like there's a time and place for it. Like if you just like never win, then maybe, but you know, there's a lot that goes into it. And with the Tua thing, everyone forgets like that wasn't even like they were picking 5th overall with what, like Houston's pick or something. Like it wasn't even their pick, right? Wasn't it someone else's? 'Cause they had a good roster before that.
Yeah.
If I remember right. But anyway, yeah, so this Rams team, I think it has looked pretty good so far. I think the defense, there's been some growing pains, but nothing like a lot of Rams Twitter will freak out like, oh, we're giving up too much yards, like we can't stop the run, like we're methodically letting them drive down the field. But it's like that's what this defense is predicated on. You know, Brandon Staley built it, Raheem Morris took it over and is going to add some things. So Chargers fans can know this very well too, because that's kind of what the Chargers defense is.
Yeah,
is you don't give up boom plays. You let them dink and dunk. You force them to run the football. You challenge them to move down the field, and then when you get to the red zone, you clamp down, and there's no space there anymore, so they can't dink and dump anymore. And you either turn the ball over, where we've seen the Rams be very efficient in the red zone defensively, like holding the Colts to 4 and outs, holding them to a couple turnovers. So that's kind of what this defense is. It's not going to be a true smash mouth, 85 Bears go out and get 1,000 sacks and force you to 3 and out every time. It's like, it's going to be predicated on some methodical drives that lead to no points. And that's what you want to see. As long as they don't get points on the board, that's what it's about. So that being said, this Bucs team is pretty efficient when it comes to the red zone. Gronk's resurgence, at least in the red zone,
is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And so this defense is going to have their hands full slowing this down. No Antonio Brown. So, I mean, that's a big win for them. They still have Chris Godwin. They still have, obviously, Mike Evans, Gronk, O.J. Howard, Scotty Miller. I think Tyler Johnson, who I loved at Minnesota, is on that roster also. So it's a tall order for this defense. But I think with a healthy unit, you got Donald, you got Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams missed Friday for an illness, non-COVID related, but he should be good to go. They're pretty much at full strength on defense. And I'm excited to see how they do step up for this game after playing a pretty poor Bears offense, a pretty decent Colts defense offense, and then now a really good Tampa offense. So this is their first true test defensively to see how they do.
Yeah, I think this is a game where you'll see where they'll miss, goodness sake, John Johnson, and Troy Hill, Morgan Fox, like all these players that became really, really solid role players for them last season. I think this is a game where you'll see the Rams miss their presence and Brandon Staley's as well. So, like I said, I expect this to be a lot of points. I expect the Buccaneers to, bring some fireworks to LA. I expect the Rams to put up some good points against the Buccaneers defense, which actually hasn't been that good. Like, I think they have some big splash plays right now, but they're not at the same kind of level that they were last year, which happens. That's the NFL. Defense is so volatile and so hard to keep up. So I expect this to be a lot of points, and I do think the Buccaneers will win a close one, probably like I'll say 34-30.
You said, sorry, the Rams to win it, 34-30?
The Buccaneers to win.
Buccaneers win it. Yeah. I'm going to go Rams. I know it's homerish. I just like this Rams team at home. I think that place is going to be rocking.
Lots of celebrities, apparently.
Yeah, I know. It's funny that most celebrities come out for Rams games and not as many Chargers games.
There were a few last week. I know, like Jamie Foxx was there, and Josh Duhamel was there. The weird TikTok family was there. I hate TikTok. It's the bane of my existence.
Yeah. Well, they had the first game, or maybe it was a preseason game, where they had the they went into like a wine business together, which now is like partners with the Chargers, but it's like
Julian Huff and
Nina Dobrev or something like that.
Yeah. They were there too. Yeah, they were there too. So I think that's like a season-long deal with the wine thing.
Yeah.
But they were there too.
But yeah, I think last game, Jordan Fuller, we can call him the best pick at 199 in the history of the NFL. 2 picks on Tom Brady last year. So we'll see if he can keep that rolling this year against him. The biggest thing with this defense, and before we wrap up the show, so everyone talks about, getting pressure on Tom Brady, which is so true. That, I mean, it's funny to watch him get pressure because he just panics and just throws the ball in the dirt. Like, if you get any pressure on Brady, like, you're set. But unfortunately, you can't do that by blitzing, because he'll call out the blitz, he'll pick it apart, and he'll just get rid of the ball within seconds. And then you're down a man in the back, in the secondary, and they'll just pick you apart that way. So you have to be able to get pressure only rushing 4, and that's the way you have to beat them. So it's really going to come down to, Leonard Floyd, how healthy he actually is, missed some practice this week, how good Justin Hollins can be on the edge. And then, Aaron Donald, and how much he's going to get double or triple teamed against a very good offensive line, how much he can get home. But it's going to come down to the other guys. If Aaron Donald is taking double and triple teams, stepping up in their one-on-one matchups and getting home by only rushing 4. Because if they can get home by only rushing 4, which is what they did last season and why they led to, I think, 3 interceptions on Tom Brady and ended up winning the game, even though Jared Goff played very poorly and had 2 picks himself. If they can do that, then I like this. I think the Rams can win by, double digits. I'm not saying like 21. I'm saying like 10 points. I think they could win by 10 to 11 points, because I think the offense will move the ball, like you said, very well against this defense. And then if the defense can just get home rushing 4, I like their odds. And then, Buccaneers, I know they put up like 45 last week, but that's Atlanta. So they're playing the
Atlanta's a mess, man. They're so bad.
Sometimes you see these coaches, you're like, you should just stay as a coordinator. Like, why'd you go to that team?
Yeah, or take like the better opportunity. I don't know. That's brutal, because he could have been. I mean, not that it's a better situation, but I mean, the Jets wanted him. He was their number 1 candidate. So I don't know. Tough situation.
What is a better situation, the Jets or the Falcons?
I think it's the Jets, because at least in the Jets, like, you have some really good young pieces. Like, I mean, I don't like Zach Wilson, of course, BYU guy. Yeah. But like, he's a young, talented quarterback. Like, in Atlanta, he's got to figure out, like, can Matt Ryan even throw the ball 20 yards down the field at this point? Like, it's just, it's brutal. And they can't cut him. Like, he has to be their starter next year too, because his dead cap hit is like $40 million.
Yeah.
So if I were a coach, I would have stayed far away from Atlanta, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I think this game with the Rams and the Buccaneers is gonna be a toss up. It really is, but I will never pick against Tom Brady. I can't do it anymore. So I expect this game to be played today, and then I expect these 2 teams to be playing again in January. We'll see.
Are these the 2 best teams in the NFC thus far, or do you have another team in there?
I think so. I really didn't know what to make of the NFC outside of the Buccaneers. And I figured that the Rams would have enough of a step back on defense for me to kind of maybe see them dropping some games, specifically in the division. Mm-hmm. But I think these 2 teams are the best teams in the conference, like pretty much, like, bar none. I don't really know who else. I had some fun with the Seahawks in the preseason. I love Russell Wilson. I don't know what it is, but I'm always inclined to pick the Seahawks. But I think it's Buccaneers and Rams, and then everybody else. Like, I know that Green Bay is going to be in the mix, but I will never bet on the Packers to play a smash mouth team and win. And they're, for whatever reason, they're up in Green Bay and they're the softest team in the conference. So, I do think that the Rams and Bucs are the 2 best teams in the conference.
Yeah, I agree. The NFC West is just so good. That's the biggest downfall for the Rams, is they got to play 3 of the best teams in the NFC twice. Yeah. So this is gonna be real fun watching this division. So, all right, bro. Before we go, Me and you play each other in fantasy this week. I didn't even realize that till like a day ago.
Oh my gosh. I'm
like,
so out of tune in fantasy. Yeah, I'm so out of tune in fantasy.
You're so out of it.
In my league with all my college friends, my best friend has Christian McCaffrey on his team. And so we were like, he was texting me like how frustrated he was about Christian McCaffrey getting injured again. And then yesterday I was like, dude, I didn't even realize that we play each other. He's like, yeah, you fucker, I hate you. So I'm like way out of it in fantasy football. Shout out to Matthew Wadley, who's come into our league and already had like 70 trades. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do that, it's funny because our league is one that I've been offered a bunch of trades and I haven't really done any because I'm like, the way our league is set up, the fact that you can play 4 receivers because it's what, 2 receivers and like 2 flex spots.
Yeah, double flex. Yeah.
So the way it's set up, it's like a lot of these trades, like, yeah, I would be like upgrading my running back, but I would still have to play that worse running back in that flex spot because I'd be giving up my better receivers. So it's like a lot of these trades that I see, I'm like, you guys are just trading, I guess, for the fun of it because you're really not you're really not helping your team out. You're not changing anything.
Like yesterday, one of the guys in our league traded away Terry McLaurin for a running back, and he's like, well, I need running back help. And it's like, really, you just need 2 serviceable guys at running back.
You play 4 receivers. So why give up a better receiver for a worse running back just so you can improve your running back room?
No, it's for those who are still listening to this, it's a 14-team league. It's a bunch of people that I have gotten to know writing and podcasting and stuff like that. So everybody knows their stuff. Like this isn't like, just
it's a fun league.
Casual Joe Schmoes who've never played fantasy football and don't watch the sport. But it's just it's hard to find good running backs. And so it's always funny. Like there's an interesting dynamic there of like, well, you got to find the running backs. You got to go trade for the running backs. Or I'm just going to load up on receivers and see what happens. So I'm definitely more of the receiver route too. Like I traded for DK Metcalf this week because Matt wanted a running back. And I was like, okay, like I'll take DK Metcalf off your hands, like for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the offers I've gotten, I'm like, you might as well buy me a pack of cigarettes so I can have a smoke after I get screwed. You're like, dude, like what are these offers? Man, but anyway, good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck to you too.
Since we're going against each other, so I think you're projected to win. But I got screwed because I lost one of my running backs to the IR in week 1, Raheem Mostert. So then it's like I'm literally I'm playing both Colts running backs. I have Hines and Taylor. Yeah, like it's a 14-team league. So it's like I'm getting trade offers like, oh, you don't want to have to play with running backs, but I'm like, you're giving me like crap for like
at least they're good. At least they're good running backs. Like at least both of them have like
they have
viable fantasy production.
Yeah. And I'm stacked at receiver with Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen, and Tyreek Hill. So at least I can make up for it there.
Yeah. Anyway. So I hope for the Chargers' sake and for my sake that they double team Tyreek Hill all day long.
I'm fine with that. I'd much rather a Chargers win than Tyreek Hill to go off on fantasy. So I honestly.
There we go.
When it comes to football versus fantasy, I always choose football teams over fantasy. That's just me. So
there we go. That's why I will never. I refuse to have Chargers on my fantasy teams. I just can't do it because then if they lose and those players don't play well, it's a double loss for me. Yeah. So I just can't do it. I respect everybody who always gets all the Chargers, but I can't do it.
Yeah. Double depression. So, and if they have a bad game, that means you're having a really bad game too. So, well, best of luck. Hope everyone enjoys the game. We're 15 minutes from kickoff. So let's jump off here and enjoy this Chargers game. We'll be tweeting all game, I'm sure. And
yes, sir.
I'm going to be set. I think this week's too soon because I want to promote it more. But next week, we're going to try doing a like live blog with chat on LAFBnetwork.com. So hopefully a lot of people want to jump in and just hang out during the game. So we'll set that up for next week and kind of promote it. So look out for that. But Steven, appreciate you as always, brother.
Same. Appreciate you, man.
All right, dude. Enjoy the game. Go Chargers. Go